The Middle East just entered a new era of uncertainty. Today we're examining one of the most consequential geopolitical events in decades, the confirmed death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and the cascading tensions that have followed across the region and beyond. This isn't speculation or rumor. This is a seismic shift in regional power. With far-reaching implications for global security, military strategy, and international diplomacy. On February 28, 2026, a coordinated military operation carried out by the United States and Israel struck critical targets in Iran's capital, resulting in the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's longtime supreme leader. Within a matter of days, his passing was officially acknowledged by Iranian state media, marking a profound rupture in the Islamic Republic's political continuity.
رهبر و امام مسلمین حضرت آیت الله العظما سید علی حسینی خامنه‌ای در راه سربلندی حرم جمهوری اسلامی ایران شهد گوارای شهادت را نوشیدند و به ملکوت اعلی پیوستند.
The news of his death has reverberated across diplomatic capitals, military headquarters, oil markets, and strategic command centers around the world. But beyond the headlines, there are deeper reasons why this development has set off a cascade of tensions that show no sign of slowing down. Today we will break this down analytically. What happened, why it matters, how it is reshaping regional dynamics, and what the world should be watching for next. Who was Ali Khamenei, and why his death matters? To understand the significance of this moment, we need to understand who Khamenei was. For nearly 4 decades, he was more than a head of state. He was the central node of authority in Iran's political, military, and religious hierarchy. Unlike leaders in many other countries, the Iranian supreme leader holds final say over foreign policy, nuclear strategy, military operations, and the direction of Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard. In practical terms, he was the architect of Iran's strategic posture toward the United States, Israel, and regional actors. His guidance shaped Iran's support for proxy forces, its missile programs, and its nuclear ambitions. The assassination of such a figure is not simply the removal of an individual. It is a disruption of the structural core that has held Iran's ideological framework together for decades. There are few modern parallels to a sitting leader with equivalent centralized control being eliminated through external military action. The strike that changed everything. The operation that killed Khamenei was not an isolated bombing. It was part of a coordinated campaign against Iran's command infrastructure, carried out jointly by US and Israeli forces. These strikes hit critical sites associated with the leadership, including locations tied to strategic planning and command and control. Iran confirmed the death of Khamenei within days, triggering a constitutional process within the Islamic Republic to appoint an interim leadership body while a successor is chosen. But the timing could not have been worse. This transition is occurring mid-conflict, with tensions already high and military engagements underway. The removal of the supreme leader destabilizes Tehran's ability to coordinate responses. It disrupts the institutional framework that governs Iran's regional strategies, its nuclear program, and its military commitments. Immediate aftermath: a leadership vacuum. Following the assassination, Iran did not plunge into immediate collapse, but it did confront a leadership vacuum. The constitutional framework in Iran calls for an interim body to assume authority in the absence of a supreme leader. In the current crisis, a council consisting of senior political, clerical, and military figures has stepped in to maintain continuity. But this interim period is fraught with danger. The power dynamics inside Tehran are now being reshaped. Hardliners within the Revolutionary Guard Corps, moderates who have long pushed for diplomatic engagement, and clerical elites all have competing priorities. Under normal circumstances, this kind of negotiation toward succession might happen over months or years, but in the context of active conflict and external pressure, rival factions are under extreme stress. This is a true test of Iran's internal cohesion, and the signs so far indicate that the regime's unity is fragile. In past crises, Tehran has used external conflict as a means of consolidating internal support. But in this case, the removal of the supreme leader undermines the very authority that would normally be used to rally the population. Escalation: how tensions have exploded. Khamenei's death did not cool tensions, it ignited them. In the days that followed, Iran launched missile and drone attacks against U.S. forces and allied positions in the region. These strikes were intended as retaliation and as a demonstration of continued Iranian capability. Meanwhile, U.S. forces have responded with defensive and offensive operations aimed at degrading Iran's ability to project military power. While the full scope of these engagements is still unfolding, it is clear that the region now locked in a cycle of escalation. Missile exchanges, air defense activations, and naval confrontations in strategic waterways like the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz have become regular events. These interactions are not isolated incidents. They are part of a broader shift toward open confrontation between state actors who until recently preferred proxy engagements and indirect conflict. Regional and international repercussions. The consequences of this escalation extend far beyond Iran. In the Gulf states, governments are scrambling to respond to increased risk of spillover. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar have reaffirmed defensive positions and in some cases have mobilized forces or strengthened alliances to deter potential Iranian aggression. European leaders have issued statements expressing concern over the potential for a broader regional war. Some have called for immediate de-escalation and diplomatic engagement, while others have reaffirmed support for defensive measures against destabilizing actions. The priority for many European capitals is to avoid a direct confrontation that could engulf NATO members or disrupt energy supplies. In East Asia and beyond, markets have reacted to the increased risk in the Middle East. Crude oil prices surged as traders priced in the possibility of extended conflict in a region responsible for a significant share of global energy exports. Shipping routes, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz, are now under heightened risk assessment as military and commercial vessels navigate in an environment with active threats. Iran's internal struggle, unity or fragmentation. Within Iran, the death of Khamenei has triggered not only external pressures but internal anxieties. For years, the supreme leader served as the ultimate arbiter among competing power centers: the Revolutionary Guard, the elected presidency, the clerical establishment, and the broader political elite. With that figure gone, these groups are now negotiating their roles in determining the future of the state. Hardliners within the Revolutionary Guard Corps have advocated for a strong, militarized response to external aggression. Moderates, including some who have long sought engagement with the West, are urging caution and emphasizing diplomatic channels to avoid total war. Clerical factions, whose authority is tied to moral and religious legitimacy, are seeking to assert influence in the succession process. These competing interests could either converge under a new consensus figure, potentially restoring stability, or deepen divisions that erode centralized control. The outcome of this internal negotiation will determine Iran's strategic posture in the coming months. The nuclear factor, urgency, and threat perceptions. One of the most critical dimensions of this conflict is Iran's nuclear capabilities. Prior to the escalation, Iran had been enriching uranium at higher levels than in past years, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable to the international community. While there is no verified confirmation that Iran possessed deployable nuclear weapons, the accumulation of enriched material raised alarms in Washington, Jerusalem, and other capitals. This perceived nuclear threat was a central driver of the US and Israeli calculus in authorizing a decapitation strike on Iranian leadership. The strategic goal was not only to remove a figure seen as obstructionist to diplomatic negotiations, but also to disrupt Tehran's capacity to accelerate nuclear weapons development. With the regime in transition, there is a risk that nuclear escalation rather than de-escalation could occur, because hardliners may view nuclear capability as the ultimate deterrent against foreign intervention. Global strategic implications. The assassination of Iran's supreme leader and the ongoing escalation between Tehran and the United States and Israel will transform regional and global geopolitics. For the United States, this conflict will test presidential commitments, coalition building, and long-term strategic interests in the Middle East. It will also force policymakers to confront questions about the future of American presence in the region, the balance of power between nuclear and conventional forces, and the limits of military coercion. For Israel, the decision to participate in the strikes reflects a willingness to take bold action against perceived existential threats. Moving forward, Tel Aviv will need to balance its security imperatives with the risk of a prolonged frontline conflict. For European countries, there is a renewed urgency to navigate between supporting stability and avoiding entanglement in a broader war. The war's economic fallout, particularly in energy and trade, will challenge many European governments' policy priorities. For states in the Gulf and beyond, the risk of becoming battlegrounds for proxy engagements or direct conflict remains high. A world on edge. The death of Iran's supreme leader is not just breaking news, it is a geopolitical earthquake. It has disrupted Iran's internal political structure, triggered military escalation with global implications, increased the risk of a broader regional war, elevated economic and strategic uncertainty for the world. Tensions are not simply high, they are exploding in ways that will shape international relations for years to come. This is a defining moment in modern geopolitics, and it demands more than headlines. It demands strategic analysis, historical context, and an understanding of why these developments matter for global security. If you want in-depth breakdowns of the latest trends in this crisis, why leaders are acting as they are, how alliances are shifting, and what it means for the future of global power dynamics, make sure to subscribe. This channel is dedicated to explaining the long game behind the world's most consequential conflicts.